Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Chronicles of Hollywood History, past, present, and future. Today I am joined by not only an actor, not only a stuntman, a martial artist, a weapon designer. I'm here with the living legend, Gerald Okamura. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate it.
Well, I think it's my pleasure that you have asked me to be part of this project, and I thank you for that.
Can you, before I talk to you about your acting, can you tell us about your martial arts background?
I started in judo when I was 13 in Hilo, Hawaii. I think I contribute the training of in judo a big help to build my foundation. I always talk about having a nice big foundation. The bigger the foundation, the higher you can go. So I took judo in Hilo when I was 13, like I said. But while in Hilo, growing up, I kind of messed around a little bit with Kendo. This settlement, it's like a YMCA in the town that I was training judo. They also had a Kendo class, so in weekends we used to sleep over in the gymnasium, and all the equipment for this Kendo thing was stored there. So we would kind of mess around with the Kendo stuff, reading books on it, watching some TV kind of deal. So messed around with that. And along with all of that, when I was taking judo, we trained in the basement of a church, Hilo Honganji Church, in a city or town, if you want to call it, of Waikea, in Hilo. But the basement was where I was practicing judo. And they also had a kind of secret type of training in Aikido. It was a closed session. For some reason, you had to go to the police station and get registered. Why, I don't know. So not everybody was allowed to watch them train. But training in judo at the church, we kind of knew how we could sneak around and get in and watch the classes in Aikido. So I got a little bit of that experience, I guess you might call it. And from there, it's almost years past. I got into the service, and towards the end of my 3 years in the Army, I got orders to go to Korea. And Korea was a hardship tour, and it's only 13 months. So my last 13 months was in Korea. While I was there, the American base that I was stationed at also had a Taekwondo class. And so immediately I signed up for that class. So 12 months or so, I guess, I trained in Taekwondo in Korea. Getting discharged from the service, I came up to Los Angeles, California, and this is how I got involved with Kung Fu San Soo. Living at an apartment, and there's a guy that came to the door selling discount membership to this place called Merchandise Export or something like that. Anyway, discount. And he when he came in, we were talking in the living room. He noticed I had a pair of sai on my wall. So the conversation kind of turned to martial arts, and well, he invited me. He says, "Hey, I know this guy. He has a school in El Monte, California, and I used to take from him. How about going with me, and I'll introduce you to him." That's how I got started in Kung Fu Sansu, which I guess I can call my primary martial arts right now.
Is that how you got into creating weapons like the hook swords and everything like that?
Not well. The sign on my wall was the example or the start of making weapons. Let's see. I'm not sure how to turn that off.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
So do I continue talking?
Sure.
Okay. Back in the days, the availability of martial art weapons was very limited. And I think the sai was one of the weapons that was available at stores. Tungfa and a nunchuck, I think, might be the three that was kind of available. The store-bought sai that my first weapon was a sai that I bought them, and they didn't have different sizes, and it didn't fit my hand. The prongs on the sai was really too close for me to twirl the weapon, and so I decided to make my own. So the thing that the guy saw on the wall was my first weapon that I made, and I made it for myself to fit my hand, and that kind of started everything, and it kind of sparked my interest in different weapons. And the thing that comes to mind right off the bat was I like the ninja concept, the ninjutsu concept, the weapons that they make for themselves, the usage of it. And the thing is, with ninja weapons, they don't make it out of the best material. It's almost like the shuriken. It's not like the store bought, real nice. You throw it, sticks on the wall, you go and get it back, right? The ninja is what you do. You throw the handful of stuff and you take off, and you run for your life, right?
Oh yeah.
So you don't pick up the shuriken. So it could be junk metal, you know. So that kind of sparked my interest, and the concealment of the ninjutsu weapon kind of started my interest in. Hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that. And what do I want it for? That kind of deal. So that kind of, even getting away from the martial art weapons, it's like, hey, a movie came up, maybe I can create something for the movie. You know, that kind of mindset for me at that time was like somebody said, do you design all this thing in your sleep? But that's how a lot of the involvement with making weapons started for me.
Your most famous are the hook swords you created, correct?
It's different in the sense of how can I say this? it is and it isn't. You know, it's some. I'm very proud of it with the design because I kind of mix and match different weapons to create this hook sword. And it's very showy for one. Uh, so I guess I can say it, but there's other smaller things that I felt that was kind of unique, and one of them is I call it a ninja pencil. I couldn't come up with names. Most of my weapons, my smaller weapons, or even the bigger ones, I used to just call it my toys. It's just toys. So this piece of aluminum, it's probably a 5/16 diameter aluminum. It's the length of a pencil. And I kind of tapered the front like you have the point of a pencil. I put an eraser on there and I put a pencil clip on it, where you can kind of put it in your pocket or whatever. But it's a takeoff on probably a Yawar stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what the sticks are for, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is my concept of that type of weapon, and I kind of created some gestures for it. The fundamental usage of this, and the thing is, with a lot of my weapons, I try to find the fundamental usage of that particular weapon, but my background in Kung Fu San Tzu carries me to do the rest of the whole picture with the weapon. So it just kind of went on and on, something like that.
I always loved the ninja weapons. I mean, since I was a kid, the one that I'm actually the only ninja style weapon that I'm actually good at is the Kasuragama. But I always remembered in the ninja movies, the sickle was never exposed. You'd have to hit the button and it would shoot out, which was cooler. But I could never in my life find one like that.
Well, that's funny because I created, and it's a big. It's not a small sickle. I had maybe the handle of the sickle must have been maybe 18 inches, 20 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy handle, and I had a concealed switch blade of the sickle concealed in the handle, attached to a chain and weight. So it wasn't something maybe a ninja would carry. To me, it's somewhat like a samurai weapon, concealable, and I guess probably the best would be a show for a movie project or scene. You hold this big club up in your hand, you have the weights and all that, and all of a sudden as the enemy approaches, you flick out the blade, and the blade must be about 12 inches maybe. So it's kind of showy, but it goes back to using the fundamental basic gestures of that particular type of weapon.
Shokasuke had all the real neat ones. I remember in Revenge of the Ninja, he had the staff that he turned into a bow and arrow. He had the switch sickle. He had the belt with the shuriken you could take off and throw. And I remember that was when I first really started getting into weapons, was because of that film. Just all the neat stuff he had.
Yeah, I kind of followed the ninja trend when all the movie stuff was happening. Along with I've made my own belt buckle that have shurikens in it. And nothing fancy, just the concept. And then later on, I found something similar to it at a martial arts store. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm not sure the timeline on if I was before the guys that sold it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, some of this is even before, I guess, the movie props and that kind of deal. But yeah, it's been a joy ride for me to just kind of think of things to create.
I have the buckle with the shuriken on it, but of course it's dulled because you poke yourself. Then I've got another belt that has a little 2-finger dagger in it that you can slide out. I've always been a fan of like more the concealed weapons.
Right. See, even this, you talk about a belt buckle with a knife in it, a push dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I was doing Killer Elite, coming back from San Francisco, I rode the plane coming back from San Francisco to LA with Dan Inosantos.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that introduced me to, he goes, hey, I got to show you this. And he comes up with a belt buckle that has a concealed push dagger in it. Okay, so from that idea, I came up with my own concept of a push dagger. And it's on the belt, but it's in the back. It's on my back, just above the cheek of my butt, and on the belt.
Mm-hmm.
And the handle is, I had it made out of stainless steel, but so it's shiny, so it's more decorative type of push dagger. And the reason I made it out of stainless steel, in fact, I made it out of the full, I think it's 4-2-4-3 stainless steel, which is non-magnetic. I can get through airport security.
Nice.
I always say that now that everything is so restricted, but I used to have fun going through the airport with some of my weapons. And the 2 push daggers that I had was one of the funnest stuff. You know, the guy goes, hey, what do you got in your belt? And at first I used to tuck in my shirt so it's very visible. Go through security. And I would tell them that's the design, you know, like the cowboy belts. You know, they got all kind of stuff on it. And I used to go through all the security. One other thing that I had going through security, I was doing a movie up in Oakland with Eric Lee, and I was taking a lot of my weapons there, but one of them that I would carry with me on the plane and going out of Burbank Airport was a walking stick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a straight stick. Only thing that I altered, I had a piece of bamboo, I split it, and I purchased in a mail order a blowgun.
Okay.
So I concealed this blowgun, and it's made out of aluminum tubing and that kind of deal. So again, it's non-magnetic, and so I would go through. And one of the trips, I used to go up every weekend to shoot. One of the trips, the guy stopped me and he says, "Oh, put the stuff on the shelf," and they walked through, and the guy says, "Oh, do you need your stick to walk?" And I said, "No, I'm okay to short distance." He picked it up, and he kind of looks through the end, and he goes, "Hey, there's a hole in your stick." I said, "Oh, is that right?" And I just continued going. So I used to have fun going through that. I don't know what would have happened if they had called security. I might not talk to you now.
Do you still sell your weapons at all?
Nah, I'm kind of done with a lot of this stuff. What I've done with a lot of my collection was, let's see, who was first? I gave Jeff Imada a lot of my stuff, only because from being a stuntman, he became a stunt coordinator, and I told him, hey, if you need some stuff, some ideas, so I gave him a lot of stuff. And then when I did G.I. Joe, Marcus Young was the coordinator, and again, it was almost coming down to like I didn't know what to do with a lot of the stuff. So Marcus Young has a lot of my weapons as well. What's left is maybe my hook sword and maybe a claw, a ninja pencil, that kind of deal. Nothing. If somebody would have come up to me right now, because I've got interviews with a guy from Black Belt about all my weapons. He's from the East Coast. And it never developed anything, but he has it. There's a chance that he was telling me that maybe he can sell that product, like a weekly showing. But that's about where I'm at. Making and selling, I'm kind of out of it. Getting too old.
Well, from all that, how did you get into acting?
Well, again, I'm sharing, and it's a fun type story. I hope that it's entertaining. I started in the movie business by accident, training with Jimmy H. Wu in Kung Fu San Tzu at his El Monte school. The first year that Kung Fu was a TV series, Jimmy H. Wu got a call from the production that they wanted to use him in one of the episodes. And I go to training one night, and he says, hey, Gerald, I got this call from the TV show Kung Fu. They want to use me, but I don't want to go. So he tells me, you go in my place. Not knowing the ins and outs, the protocol, I was very naive to the whole movie business. So I didn't think anything. I said, yeah, okay, I'll go. Not knowing that's not the way it's done. So I go in the next day, and I report there early in the morning, trying to find a production aide, production assistant to report in. Just so happened, I ran into the technical advisor at that time was David Chow, and I didn't know him personally, but I knew about him, and it was kind of the same way. He knew who I was, but we really didn't know each other. And I tried to explain the situation to him. Hey, Jimmy didn't want to come, and he sent me. I'm not sure if it's okay or not. Yeah, stick around, and that's how I got started. Just by accident, and for me, it was like, okay, I'm on TV. That should be good enough for me. I wasn't thinking of a movie type career, but that's how everything started for me. And from TV, the next year. Again, there's a little story behind it, but I went to interview for Killer Elite.
Mm-hmm.
So this started for Killer Elite in a big movie with Sam Peckinpah and some of the big names like James Caan. I think he just came off doing Godfather, I think. Anyway, one of my fellow students, no, one of my fellow, we were both students at GMA2, both of us. He calls me up and he says to me, hey, Gerald, I want to borrow some of your weapons. I have this interview for this movie. And I says, there's no way I'm going to loan you my weapons, but where my weapons go, I go. If I can go to this interview with you, we can take my weapons. So we did. Took my weapons, went to the interview, Sam Peckinpah. So with little demonstration, and both of us got the gig. But I went to that project as a non-SAG member.
Okay.
So we had to, going back to Kung Fu, I didn't know, but I went as a, what do you call it? I didn't have a SAG card, and I didn't know you needed a SAG card to work. But the first job that you have in SAG, you come under this, I can't think of the name, boy, where you can work in a SAG project.
Okay.
But working on the second SAG project, I had to go get a SAG card. So the whole deal was, back then, a lot of people in the industry and with SAG, didn't have resume that said I'm a martial artist. Mainly the Asians had martial art in their resume, but nobody else. So it was kind of easy for us to get into SAG at that time. But to make it even easier, we all got a letter from the non-SAG guy. We all got a letter from Sam Peckinpah that said he needed us on this project. So I go to SAG and I present the letter from Sam Peckinpah, and that's how I became a SAG member, as well as working the project Killer Elite.
You were in, this is probably a weird question. You were in a movie that I really liked it when I was a kid, not so much anymore. Charlie Chan and the Curse of the Dragon Queen. Was it,
well,
back then, I know people didn't think of it, but did it bother you that you have Peter Ustinov playing Charlie Chan? Did stuff like that bother you?
No, no, and yes and no. The thing is, to me, he played the part well. He even if he wasn't Chinese, I thought he fit the part well. The other thing is that I got aboard the project, Charlie Chan and the Curse of the Dragon Queen, after I did Octagon with Chuck Norris and Aaron Norris. Aaron Norris was the coordinator on Charlie Chan, and I was security on that project because the Asian community was protesting Peter Ustinov playing the part of Charlie Chan. So my primary function on the project was security guard around, well, cast and crew, I guess.
It was a funny movie. I haven't seen it. I have it somewhere. I haven't seen it in, God, what would that be? Over 30 years now, I believe.
Yeah, pretty close.
The Octagon I've seen recently because one of my favorite martial artists, Richard Norton, was in that. So what was the Octagon like? You had just one of Chuck's first films, one of Norton's first U.S. films. That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, well, that was Richard's, I think, first American movie, if I'm not mistaken. That was the first time that I ever met Richard Norton on that project.
He's one of my heroes.
super guy. I mean, super guy. Richard Norton is, well, I'm not saying that Chuck isn't, I know Chuck from the competition at Long Beach and being a martial artist. But again, actually, working with Chuck, Octagon would have been the first time, and then, meeting Aaron and that kind of deal. But it's these kind of projects that I kind of get to meet. And the funny thing is, I've always looked up to a lot of this guy. Not saying more like Richard Norton. I met Richard. I knew he was a martial artist. But a lot of these guys, even like El Leon and things, I see them in magazines. I see them in tournaments and stuff. So I used to always look up to these people. I used to be very envious of their martial art skills. It's almost like a kid in a candy store. I'm telling you.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, for me, it was a really big deal working on different projects and meeting people. Charlie Chan, the funny part, Michelle Pfeiffer. Mm-hmm. I think that's how you pronounce her name.
That was one of her very first films.
Well, she came off doing Grease too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, she comes in as a very naive person, right? and part of our job is securing cast and crew. So one night we're shooting at Fifth and Main. Are you familiar with Fifth and Main in Los Angeles?
I'm not.
Okay. Fifth and Main is where all the druggies and the homeless and...
Oh, okay.
I mean, bad. If you're around this area, he goes, I shot the movie scene last night at Fifth and Main, they'll say, you crazy, you stupid. It's a bad place to be. So anyway, we're shooting this one night at Fifth and Main, and it all starts with Peter Ustinov. Peter Ustinov walking on the sidewalk, doing his thing, and he finishes his scene, and this one young kid, young, and I want to say maybe early 20s, drunk. I don't think he was on drugs, but I know he was drunk. And he comes right up to Peter Ustinov, almost nose to nose. He was shorter than Peter. So right away, I gotta jump in and do something. I'm confronting this guy, and I got Peter Ustinov in the back of me. I'm facing this guy. I'm trying to tell him nicely, hey, bub up, this is the movie shoot. Mm-hmm. And the AD, on his walkie-talkie, called, in fact, that night, Teddy Tabura, another martial artist, you must know.
Oh, yes.
Yes. He's gone now, but Teddy and I was doing the security job with another guy. So the three of us was doing security. The AD calls Teddy on his walkie-talkie, and he goes, hey, Teddy, I think Gerald needs some help. I can hear the conversation. You gotta be kidding. Don't need help. So that's kind of the behind the scenes kind of story. I always enjoy sharing on interviews. The other thing is with Michelle Pfeiffer, when we go back to Michelle Pfeiffer, she does her scene, another scene, and at the end she walks right off out of frame into the crowd. Now I gotta go chase after her. She decides to go to there's an arcade at the end. Mm-hmm. That place is filled with druggies and young people, but drunken and druggies. And she goes in there and they just point on her. And I'm saying, Michelle, I don't think we belong here. No. And like the end, it's just one of these deals, man. You got to shy them away and protect the actors. So that's kind of stories that I love to share on some of these big stars. They start out really small, very naive of a lot of the situation that's going on. Have no care in the world. They know they're not going to get hurt, I guess. So that's kind of some of the stories I love to share with you.
Well, I have to ask you, and it's been talked to death, so I'll ask you only one. Big Trouble in Little China, a cult classic. You told me off the air, but I'd like to get it on the air. Why is it that a master of weaponry as yourself used 2 gold pistols?
I asked myself the same question. The way everything started is like a cattle call, right?
Mm-hmm.
For an interview for John Carpenter. I mean, it was like a cattle call. All the martial arts guys was there. So I took a student. I took one of my students. Took some of my weapons, along with some of my oddball weapons that maybe you wouldn't consider martial art. And we go and I perform for John, doing my hand-to-hand, threw my student around. Usually most of the demonstration, I guess, there's no mat. We were in like a hall, wooden floors, and we train at my school. There's a cement slab with carpets on it. That was really no padding. So for me to throw this student around wasn't really a big deal. He wasn't getting hurt. He knew how to fall and all that kind of stuff. But we do our stuff. And I had a chance just to kind of show some of the oddball type of weapons to John. And naturally, thank you, and I go home. And he, that night I got a call from one of the coordinators, and they said, hey, we want to use you on this project. I want you to go to the prop shop tomorrow, and they'll assign you your weapon. I'm flying high now, right? So next day I go there, and the big deal is that I can drive onto the lot. You know how they really restrict you from driving on the lot? Mm-hmm. You need like a pass, your name got to be at the gate, that kind of deal. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, man, my name's on the clipboard. So that's a big deal for me. Anyway, getting back to this, how I got my weapon. I go to the prop shop, I introduce, and they goes, yeah, we know who you are. And the guy comes out with 2 gold-plated pistols, pearl handle. And I look at this guy, and I thought it was a joke at first. Mm-hmm. And he says, no, this is what John wants you to have as your weapon. And I said, oh, okay, I want to be in this movie. So, and they follow up with, go, hey, we want to see if the holsters fit you. Yeah, and because it's two guns and that kind of deal, it's almost like the belt has to fit you, right? Mm-hmm. Not too much room for adjustment. But I said, okay, thank you, this is it. They go, oh, wait a minute. John also wants you to have 2 bandoleros. And I kind of look at this guys, and I said, okay, if that's what John wants, I'm not going to argue the point. I want to be in this movie. And then they come out with this bandoleros, and I look at it, and I didn't say anything, but I looked at it, and the bullets doesn't fit a 6-shooter. Yeah, you're familiar with that, right? In the movie. And so I right off the bat, that was a joke for me. Now, getting back to your question as far as why, if you remember the kind of the history behind Big Trouble in Little China, the script was written for a Western.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're familiar with that, right?
I am. Yeah, he was like supposed to like be, instead of a missing semi, he was looking for a horse and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it was a really weird original script.
Right. So, at that time, I didn't think nothing. You give me anything you want. I want to be in this project. So, besides the 6-shooters, remember they gave me 2 big Chinese hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my thing is, okay, I'll go with whatever you want. And in those days, like I said, I was very naive to the business.
Mm-hmm.
I never asked a lot of questions. Why? You want to give me 2 6-shooters? Thank you.
Yep.
I'll be in the project. And later on, I found out that the storyline was supposed to be a Western. And I'm thinking, later I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute. I guess I'm the only Western character in this old martial art group, right?
Yeah, the others all had swords.
Well, they had guns too. Remember, they had all kind of guns.
Oh, yeah, in the big alley shootout. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, but they all had, I guess, Oriental type wardrobe. I had the 2 pistols with me, and I had the bender. That was my wardrobe for the whole shoot. Wow. And part of it was kind of disadvantaged because you've been sitting waiting to do whatever needed to be done. Coordinator would come and say John wants 8 guys. Okay, so 8 guys we go to find out what John wants. Most of the time that I go with the group, the first thing John says, we don't want Gerald. It's too recognizable. I go and drink coffee. So some of it, I felt I could have been in more scenes if I didn't have this character at that time. Not knowing that this character is still alive today. I mean, the movie is still alive today. My character is still alive today.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I gotta thank John for giving me this character.
Now then you were in my opinion, the ultimate man movie that made me start getting tattooed, Showdown in Little Tokyo. One of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion.
Well, again, you know that my friends were all in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Asian martial art guys, stunt guys, or whatever. And even that, I want to share with another funny story with you. I went to the audition for the part of the torturer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the interview was almost nothing because there's no line. They kind of look at you and they go, "Okay, thank you," that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I go home. I wait. No call at all. I think I called my agent and I asked them because it was a principal part. It wasn't a stunt job. It's kind of a combination. It's a combination. Anyway, because they didn't call back. They don't want to use you in this project, and that was fine. Because see, most of my interviews, I go and if I don't get it, I'm back at my aerospace job. You know, the movie wasn't my primary job. So being turned down, disappointment, but not so much, right? I go back, I can still get my paycheck. It's not like some of these guys, the only job they had was movies, right? And it's kind of here and there. Most of the time you're in the unemployment line, right? So for me, it was no big deal. So I'm at work. I work second shift. So like about 10:30, I get this call, and it's kind of a rainy night. 10:30, I get this call. The casting director says, "Hey, we might need you for the shoot. Are you interested?" And I said, "What's the deal?" She says, "We're at Long Beach, and it's raining. We can't shoot our scene. So we're gonna change the shooting scene to something else, and we're gonna be at Van Nuys beer where they make beer at this place anyway." And the guy that was that we picked for the torturer is not available. He's out of town. So we would like to make you an offer. And I went, and at first they said, can we talk without your agent? I said, for sure. Sure we can. And so we got into a discussion, and finally we agreed. And they says, okay, can you be at this location by, I think it was 12:30, 1 o'clock, someplace in between there. I said, for sure, I just gotta go home, get my stuff, and I can head straight up there. That's how I got the job on this movie project. Weird. I think weird.
What you got to work with Brandon Lee. What were your thoughts on him? Because that was his. I mean, he'd done a few small parts, but that was like his first big, American film. How do you think he did as far as showcasing like all his skills, living up to the, a legacy that you couldn't live up to? But I mean, he did really good.
Well, my take on all this, and my opinion on all of this, is that Brandon never tried to follow or emulate Bruce Lee. I think that was, for me, I think that was the best thing he ever did. Not follow a big macho guy like Bruce. He did his own thing. He had skills, but it wasn't too much of the showy type. Person-wise, I felt Brandon is very personable, very easy to like type of person. He'll talk to you. I enjoyed working with him. The first time I met him was on that project. And again, it's like he impressed me right off the bat that I guess you might call it he belonged there. And the production, I think, had a little worries, and that's why they had Dolph Lundgren work with him in this project.
He moves great.
Right? Just to help carry the movie, right?
He does not fight like a guy his size.
No. So the thing is, the experience that I had working all of this is with two guys. First time I met Bob, first time I met Brandon, that kind of deal. To me, it was very entertaining.
you worked with Brandon again on Rapid Fire, correct?
Yes. Again, that was a legitimate. The guy calls me up and says, "Hey, we need a stunt guy," and that was the deal. The best part about the whole thing is that I had a scene fighting Brandon Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Not taking away from Showdown in Little Tokyo, because I had some interaction with Brandon and Dolph, right, on that torture rack,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had a scene with Brandon, and that I think was the most precious thing working on Showdown in Little Tokyo. And again, he's really easy to work with. No chip on your shoulder type of guy. Very personable. You can talk to him like he's talking to anybody else. But again, getting back to Rapid Fire, I had a chance. So I'm glad working 2 projects with Brandon Lee. I had scenes with him. But there's times when you don't work with the main star, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, both projects I had scenes with Brandon Lee, so that made it really nice.
Let me ask you. I've never asked anyone this. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to have to answer it. When he passed away on the set of The Crow, when they had one of the prop guns that didn't have all the powder taken out of the bullet, there were a lot of people, and I remember there was like a Current Affair and Inside Edition, and they did all this stuff, and a lot of people thought he was murdered by like the Chinese mafia and all this for things his dad did. Did you ever believe any of that, or did you just think it was just a simple accident on set, just a tragic accident?
Well, I wouldn't say simple, but I thought it was an accidental event situation. And the reason for that is I never followed up real close on how everything started, how everything ended. Well, we know how it ended, but like I said, it's for me anyway inconclusive. When I was in the military, firing a rifle blanks, I know that there's a wad that comes out from the blank shell, and they showed us that if you point the rifle at a fatigue uniform, it'll penetrate the fatigue. So I know there is some kind of projectile that comes out from a blank cartridge when they fire the gun. You can go back to question how did Bruce Lee die?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stories there. And I guess because it was in Hong Kong, not too many people, the word I want to use is probably sued, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the American project with Brandon, I guess, the first thing that comes out is a suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to reprimand the people involved. But I really don't have a take on it. The only thing that I volunteer opinion on is that he went too early.
Yes.
When and how it happened, it's a done deal. But I thought that his personality and his charisma, he would have gone a long way. He would have been an entertaining martial arts action star.
Without a doubt.
Yes, and that's probably my only take on this, Corey.
You know, I have to ask you, one of my favorite movies you had a small part in was, no one talks about it, Shoot Fighter, Fight to the Death.
Shoot.
What was it like being there with Bolo? I mean, I've heard Bolo's the nicest guy, but Bolo's the most frightening guy you'll ever see, too.
Well, see again, a lot of this, different people have different opinions for different events, different timeline. You follow what I'm trying to lead up to?
I do.
You have your opinion, I have mine. Your opinion might be for a particular event that you were there, a little bit what you see on the screen. Yes, very menacing looking.
Yes.
Chinese Hercules.
Yes.
He was built. And then from watching Enter the Dragon, I mean, you know, it's like, man, who's going to challenge this guy? You know, that kind of my experience is a little bit pluses and minuses. And I'll start with the pluses. I was very honored to meet him. That was the first time I met him on the set. He had an interpreter that I didn't have much conversation with him, just in between takes, I guess. But he seemed very quiet, and I'm not sure if because he had to use an interpreter. You know, sometimes you get caught in between the interpretation of the question and the answers. The minus plus of all this was that when we were shooting the scene, one of the scenes is that he's facing the two fighters, and I walk up to him and I actually put my hand on his shoulder. And I guess when we were rehearsing, when I put my hand on his shoulder, I must have just shoved him, I guess. So he tells me when I put my hand on his shoulder, he doesn't want me to shove him. He wants to stay as a statue, you know, like a He-Man, those kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of threw me for a loss. You know, here's this big guy. Well, the follow-up to that is I put my hand on his shoulder and he kind of backhands me and I fall, you know, that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was kind of unusual for him to say, hey, the whole idea is to kind of tap me but don't push me kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know. But outside from that, the conversation I had with Bolo through an interpreter was kind of uncomfortable. So that's kind of where I want to kind of leave it.
Gotcha. No, I understand. You know, it was shortly after that you did a few films with Gary Daniels. You know, and he was, when you worked with him, he was maybe just one or two movies in to his career here in the time. What were your memories of working with him?
Well, like I said, I met Gerald Daniels through David Huey. The first movie I got involved with David Huey was a thing called Karate Wars.
Mm-hmm.
You might not even know the movie. But it was kind of takeoff of Karate Kid in the sense that the difference, let me put it, the difference was that at the end, the two masters was the one that was fighting. The two young kids, young students of each instructor fought, but the big deal was that the instructors actually fought. And the other instructor was Sensei Richard Rabago. I don't know if the name is familiar to you.
That one is not.
Beg your pardon?
That one is not.
You don't know Richard Rabago? Well known around here from Hawaii. Both of us are from Hawaii, but we're really good friends. And the thing is, Richard actually went for the interview first. Well, not first, but he got the interview, and he says, "Hey, why don't you drive me?" Because he asked me to go with him because he said, "Hey, you're a little bit more familiar with interviews and stuff." So I actually went with him for this interview for the movie Karate Kid, Karate Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And as we got into the conversation, the director producer David Huey was cousin to this one person that I worked with Eric Lee on a movie called Weapons of Death. So there was a little connection there. Hey, I know him, and you know him, and that kind of deal. Mm-hmm. Richard gets the part, but the guy goes, "I'm looking also for a bad guy." And at first, this is what I found out later. David, I guess, didn't want to offer me something on a low budget. Not saying that I didn't work in a low budget, but he restrained himself from offering me a part in this movie. But when he kind of jokingly say, "Hey, you want to play the bad guy?" And of course, yeah, so that's how I got started with David Huey and his projects. And probably the second project was with Gary Daniels. He came aboard, and I guess David Huey wanted to make him or help him start his career in the movie business. So we did like maybe three or four movies together under the David Huey banner.
Yeah, I liked all those films. Those were all good. Then you even did a handful of Andy Sedaris films.
Oh,
what would those had to have been fun to do?
That's the different stuff. In fact, there's a connection there. I went to interview. I worked with one of the I don't think she's a Playboy centerfold, but this female. Let me see. How can I explain her? Her name is Eva Cadell,
okay.
and we worked on a movie, Eric Lee's movie. This is, I think, the last Eric Lee's movie that we worked on, called Weapons of Death.
Okay, I remember that one.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know if you remember her, but she, Eva was Sid Campbell's love interest, I think. Anyway, we do the movie, and then I get a call from her, and she tells me that, "Hey, Andy Sedaris has a movie. Why don't you call and try set up a interview?" So I did. I went. I didn't get the part, but lo and behold, Richard Rabago gets a call from his agent for an interview with Andy Sedaris. So again, I tag along. and the funny part, he gets the job, and they're looking for the number 2 bad guy. And so Andy offered me the number 2 spot. So again, I got to thank Richard for getting his spot. So that's the start of my Andy Sedaris adventure.
Were those fun to do? Though I have to imagine the set was probably pretty fun.
For me, it was. Well, the funny part is with all this sexy female on the job, all of them is really down to earth, easy to talk to, no chip on their shoulder kind of deal. I'm the big star kind of deal. Easy to work with. So Fit to Kill was the first, and Richard and I were kind of like the bad guys. So we were like stunt, kind of low on the credit kind of deal. But that's how I got started. That's the first time I met Julie Strain.
Yeah, he had all the beautiful women. Yeah, you had Fit to Kill, and then you were in a handful of them. You were in I know you were in Day of the Warrior, and then then the other one, The Return to Savage Beach.
Yeah, but before that, the second one I did, I think, was called The Dallas Connection.
Oh, okay, yep, I remember that one.
Yeah, and then I think I did The Day of the Warrior.
That was the one where they brought in Mark Bagwell, the professional wrestler. I remember for that one. He had a nice little run in him too.
Yeah, and there's kind of stories on that too. I thought being a wrestler, man, you can you can do anything to this guy, but like everything else, he's not getting the big money as a wrestler. So, but we did our thing, and again, I have fun with the character. And the funny part is, what I did, Fit to Kill, maybe not the Fit to Kill, The Dallas Connection.
Mm-hmm.
Julie and I were teamed together, but we were the bad people, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I get killed in that, and she gets killed too, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, long story short, the next project comes up. We are the twins to the bad. You follow that on that? No? You didn't follow that? We came back not as the same character, but the twins to the bad people. So we were the good people now.
But you always had the same name. You were always Foo.
Right. And I guess you're familiar with the movies.
Oh yeah.
But remember, I had to go to Vegas, and we were at the Maxim, and now Elvis Fu is gonna perform. And it was so funny because after the shoot, I'm out of costume, but I'm walking in the casino, and an elderly couple comes up to me and they ask me, "Are you performing tonight?" The marquee has Elvis Fu, 9:00. And it's like, I had to laugh. But the thing is, working with projects like that, there's chance for me to ad lib, and one of the best, for me anyway, there's a few, but one of them was that when I was doing Elvis, and trying to imitate most of the stuff, and after Elvis sings, he has that handkerchief that he wipes his sweat.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll follow. I wipe the sweat, and I throw the handkerchief to the girl sitting in the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you remember the movie, she throws it back to me, right? So that kind of stuff is kind of enjoyable working on that kind of project. You can throw in your own idea.
Do you don't act as much anymore in the films. Do you have any advice for people that are trying to get started in the business now, doing action films or stunt work?
Well, number one, the production that was available back when I was doing it in the 80s and 90s, they had a lot of production that was shooting like 15, 17 movies a year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like all the Don Wilson stuff. I cannot think of the production company now.
PM Entertainment.
They were doing all the Don Wilson stuff, like 15, 17 projects a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got hooked up on another, I think it's AIP, I think, Action International Pictures, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I did Time Burst. And they were doing a lot of projects a year as well. So availability of low budget stuff to build up your resume was a lot more available. Today, I'm not that active, but it seems like it's not that much available. And you know, back then I used to work on a lot of stuff, or just about anything I could get my hands on, to build up my resume. You hear that, or you used to hear that a lot. Build up your resume. So
Mm-hmm.
some of it is like low pay, but you get credit, that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So for advice, if you want to get into action stuff, you gotta hook up with guys that have seminars for action, movie action seminars. Shows you how to fight, how to throw the punch, you know, angles, that kind of deal. And there's also a higher echelon of stunt, you know, where you take high falls, fire gigs, and that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's a deal. But a lot of them now, they're concentrating on the fighting aspects of the movie. So there's a lot of seminars. James Liu has a seminar. Simon Rhee has a seminar.
Two great guys.
Yeah, you know, so they're willing to share their experiences, and you know, to me, it's priceless because they've done it, they've gone through it. James is an Emmy Award winner, you know, that kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I can say that I've worked with a lot of the big guys.
Oh yeah.
Hoping that they're still there, you know, they're still active. I'm done.
Do you because you know now it's not you know, back in the day you had Van Damme, Gary Daniels, Seagal, Speakman, Don the Dragon, all these people. Do you see any who would you say is the top martial arts guy right now? Do you see one?
Oh, you know, it's difficult for me right now to pick anybody. I don't follow as I used to, only because I don't know the new guys. In fact, even the stunt world, the young Asian stunt guys, most of them I don't know. I don't know. I never met them. There's a few that still kind of around. But I guess some of this action stars, I think you would find more like in Hong Kong, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, over here in the U.S., I think it's not an Asian that's the top martial art action star. Sad to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I, off the top of my head, I can't think of a name.
That's okay.
Shoot me some, I can tell you. You know,
I always say right now, I think Michael Jai White's probably the top one in my opinion.
Okay, but to me, again, there's different uh, qualifications, I think. Even back in the day, you never heard of much of wire gigs. I can remember doing a clothesline, and the guy just falls back. He kicks up his leg, and he falls down. Hey, when you do a clothesline, the guy does a double flip, right?
Yes.
The ability of the stunt people is extraordinary right now. They're so talented. I mean, yeah, they can make you look good. And the thing is, like the saying goes, you as a stunt person have to sell the gig. You gotta make the actor look good. That number one priority, right?
Oh yeah.
So even when I used to do demos, at different events, I used to make sure that the guy that I'm partner with, he better make me look good, because if not, I'm going to do it for real. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to flip you, and you got no choice but to slam on the. But if you can make me look good, I don't have to put the pressure on your arm, that kind of deal. I mean, that goes through my mind. And I think I take that into working on movie projects. I gotta make the guy that I'm fighting look good.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of the whole world.
You still have, millions of fans out there. Where can they find you online? Do you have like any websites or Facebook or Twitter pages?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked that, because Facebook is just unbelievable. I have a staff that helps me get things on Facebook, Instagram, that kind of deal. I have and it's, if they look up Gerald Okamura Facebook, I mean, they can get on there. Or you want to be a friend and you catch all my stuff. But again, getting back with all of this is that talking about the life of Big Trouble in Little China and my character, and I'm called different things, the Golden Six Shooter, the Gadget Man, that kind of deal. And if you look or follow most of my Facebook stuff, I mean, there's people that will, that I guess they enjoy sketching this character. I mean, it's, for me, it's kind of unbelievable on some of the sketches that they post. And another way of just keeping me alive. A couple of years ago, there's a guy, I'm not sure if you know what a sofubi. Sofubi is a hollow plastic, like the Cupidon type of merchandise. Well, this one guy, Mark Nagata, he's up in San Francisco area, I think. Supposed to be one of the big, well-known Sofubi guys. And so if you look at my Facebook and stuff, he has made me a Sofubi, and that thing has kind of gone, we've been doing good. He initiated, premiered it at, I think 3 years ago on WonderCon or DCon, one of the shows. But every once in a while, he'll make something else, different color and that kind of deal. I've had, in fact, the latest, this guy made me a pillow. I can shoot you some pictures later.
Yeah, definitely.
so you can kind of laugh at it. I always say, don't laugh at me, but with me.
God, that's what I say too.
Yeah. So, it's one of those deals where working with different people that you mentioned, it's kind of joy. We talk about James Liu, James and I have worked on one project come to light is that Hewlett Packard commercial.
Mm-hmm.
You familiar with that?
I am.
I laugh all the time. James and I always kind of joke each other when we at the studios at Wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
We're always joking that who gets the darker uniform or the outfit. And so here's this project, and I'm there before everybody else, and Wardrobe says to me, "We have a nice gown, full length, and that's gonna be your outfit." And so I'm in the trailer, and I see all this different type of wardrobe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I see this pink tutu, right? You know what I'm talking about,
I
right?
do. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then right outside the window, James Liu walks past, and I go, "Hey, there's James Liu." And I go, "Which one of these wardrobe belongs to James?" And the girl goes, she points to the pink tutu, not knowing the whole script. But every one of them had to go in all the different uniforms, right? The different wardrobe. And the big joke is that, man, the way James Liu was built, big thighs and all, they had so much trouble getting the tutu on him. But we still laugh about it. 3-4 guys had to help him pull up his tutu outfit, man.
You don't have a picture of that, do you?
Yeah, I have. I'll find it. I'll show it to you, man.
I'd love to see that.
Oh, I'm surprised you haven't, because I've been posting that every once in a while. Some of the other guys will post it as well. So it's been a fun journey for me. It's like, and like I said, Big Trouble, Little China, and the character is still alive, so it's a fun thing for me. I mean, what is that? 30
Oh,
year,
37 years now, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing that's disappointing is that nobody has set up a reunion type of gathering.
Yeah.
I mean, this year is kind of tough. A couple years ago, I think it was the 30th, maybe the 30th. I tried to do something, but you gotta get permission from the studio and all that. That kind of deal.
Yeah.
But I was kind of hoping that maybe the studio might, but they don't care about it anymore. I don't think so. And now that Disney bought out 20th Century Fox, also I think we kind of put on the back burner. But I would love to. The latest gathering that we had was that at Japanese Museum in Little Tokyo in Los Angeles. They had a screening of Big Trouble in Little China, and after the movie, we had question and answers, and we had like maybe 15. John Carpenter wasn't there, but the writer was there along with James Hong and a bunch of us. James Lou was there, Al Leong was there, Jeffy Mother. So that was the last and only gathering of Big Brother Little China.
Well, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today. I would love to have you back again one day just to simply talk about weapons for a few hours.
Well, Corey, you can call me anytime. I would love to share, anything. I mean, you bring up a subject, and it seems like there's always a story behind the event. It's so funny. So, a real quick one. Let me that come to mind. Big Trouble, G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the Huntington Library location, and it's just me and the two kids. It's when they're doing training.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have like 80 background people, martial arts, okay? 80. So again, my friend Richard is one of the background people. He's part of the sensei and the group. Anyway, he rides with me, so naturally I get to drive on the lot, okay? The rest of the background people have to park at this one location about 5 miles away, and they get shuttled over to the trailer on the Huntington Library parking lot. Okay, so Richard and we pull up, and I'm looking for my trailer. So I go to the production assistant and I say my name, and he goes, "Yeah, we know who you are. Come this way, Mr. Okamura," and he shows me to my trailer. So Richard and we go to my trailer, and the production assistant tells me, "Okay, both of you can go for breakfast." Okay, so it's a little bit different between background and cast, right? Principals, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get better food. They make it right there. The rest of it is like a warming table kind of deal. Anyway. So Richard and I go, and then we order our meal. We're sitting down. We get done and we head back for the trailer. The guy in charge of background asked Richard, "Are you background?" Richard says, "Yeah." Guy goes, "Okay, I want you to go to wardrobe, pick up your wardrobe, and then report back." And they have one big canvas tent. And he says, "All you background people need to change in this tent area." And Richard, without breaking a smile, he just comes out and he goes, "But I have my own trailer." He tells this guy, and this guy looks at him and says, "You what?" He goes, "I have my own trailer." The guy goes, "Show me." So we walk into my trailer, and Richard says, "This is my trailer. When you need me, come get me here." and the guy didn't know what to say. I mean, stuff like that. I enjoy stuff like that, man.
You got to work. That made me think, before I forget, before I let you go, when you did G.I. Joe, you also did the TV show that my son used to watch. You were on an episode of Kicking It. Leo Howard, the young guy that played the young Snake Eyes, the star of that show, he's a hell of a martial artist. I'm surprised we haven't seen more from him.
Yeah, after Kicking It, I think he has a band, if I'm not mistaken. He might have spent more time with his band than pursue an acting career, I think. I'm not sure. But there's a story to that too. I met Brandon Soho and Leo Howard at the, well, not an interview, but we were meeting with the director. So both kids came with their mother. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my first meeting the people. Okay, so we get out to that, and we do the movie. Fine. Okay, we're done. So when Kicking It came aboard, I got a call from Leo Howard's mother, and she says, there's an episode on Kicking It, and they're looking for a grandmaster. And she says, she told the producer and the director that she knows of a actor grandmaster. Okay, so she submits my picture. So I get a call, and I go, and then I meet up with these people. And that's how I got on Kicking It, through Leo Howard, just working with him on G.I. Joe. And how funny is that? That's pretty good.
No, he was very talented. The way he kind of blended martial arts with a lot of gymnastics there, but it flowed for him like just perfectly.
Right, right. Yeah, in fact, I was really surprised from G.I. Joe to Kicking It. He must, he was taller than me when I did Kicking It. Not so much he grew, but at the same time, I'm assuming that he continued his martial art training.
Yeah, my son used to always watch the show, and I would wander in there, and I started watching it with him, and I was like, wow, because he was the one that caught my eye. I was like, oh, this guy's, he could be an action star when he grows up if he wants to.
Well, I thought he was going in that direction. I thought for sure he was going to go in that direction. And the other kid, Brendan Soho, he went behind the camera. He started he started to film his own projects. At this stage, I'm not sure exactly where he's at. I don't know about his timeline, but he's done some pictures now. He also, right after, I want to say after G.I. Joe, I think he did, what's that, Tropical Thunder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was that kid. He had a big part in that thing. So all these young guys, I mean, they're exceptional. They have a sense of direction. They're not. I guess the word is confident.
Yeah.
They're confident in whatever they want to do. So yeah, it's a good journey for them. I'm proud, and the thing for me is just being part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal for me.
Well, it's been an honor to talk to you. I can't thank you enough for you doing this today. Like I said, I'd sure like to have you back and talk to you again sometime.
You can do that anytime.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.